Welcome to Excel Lab 1, our first venture into using Excel, one of the most used spreadsheet in the world. A couple things I want you to note. First of all, please read all of the instructions before you start. One of the biggest mistakes students make is they skip the instructions, and there's valuable information in here, so please read the instructions. Also, for this PowerPoint, there's slides, there's commentary in the notes you can read that have more information than the slides, or you can listen to this recorded lecture. I'll leave it to you to decide which one you do, but you have multiple ways to understand this information. For this assignment, I strongly recommend you use Excel 365, which is a PC desktop version. That is how these slides are written. I have that version. Mac and cloud versions will work, but they're going to differ a bit. You'll probably have to use AI or something else to help you where there are differences or where the instructions don't work, but your file will be just as correct this way. And I wouldn't go buy another PC or go out and buy a PC. But if you can use a PC, you're better off. For this exercise, you're going to notice there's a high-level set of instructions, and then there's detailed screenshots. Use whichever works best for you, or use them both. The first step you need to remember to do is to download the start file. You have to do that because you're not starting from scratch, so make sure you download it, and then immediately rename it to our class standards, and save it to your OneDrive. If you don't do this, you won't have the automatic backups, and you could lose your work. So just get in the habit of doing that all the time. You are allowed to collaborate and work together on this. In fact, I recommend it. As you're going through this, you'll find things that'll stump you, and if you have a couple other people with you, they'll have figured it out and they can show you how to do it. So my most successful students usually do these labs in groups. However, the work you submit must be your own. You can't just do one assignment for 2 or 3 people and copy it. Everybody must do their own work and submit it. As I mentioned in class, you are allowed to use AI for help. However, AI should help and advise you, not do it. You're trying to learn how to do this, but when you get stuck and can't figure out my instructions or what to do, ask AI to help you and let it coach you through the exercise. Also, please, please, please remember to submit 2 files for this assignment only. People always forget to do that. The first assignment needs to be your Excel file, and make sure it's not the starter file, and also make sure it's not a screenshot of the file. Those are 2 common errors. And then second, you're going to submit a PDF, which is going to be a PDF or printout of the table only, not the graph. I'm showing you how to learn how to print, and since we can't print out paper, you're going to print it as a PDF. Finally, the files you submit may look odd on Canvas. Don't worry about it. If they look correct when you created them, they're going to be fine. Canvas doesn't know how to display Excel files, so there's nothing wrong. And then also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, but otherwise, good luck on Excel Lab 1. Excel is one of the most important skills you'll learn in this class, and honestly, one of the most valuable tools you can have in business. Whether you're in HR, accounting, finance, supply chain, almost anywhere, Excel skills are necessary to do your job. It allows you to analyze numbers, to create reports, and create information. During this class, we're going to give you a basic, or help you gain a basic understanding of Excel. It does take hundreds of hours to become a master, but you'll have a really good baseline if you complete the 6 or 7 hands-on Excel labs we're going to have this semester and really commit to get it done. This will be a great boost to your career, and I get many, many students who say the best part of this class is learning about Excel. So excited to start our first lab. Commit now to learn Excel. Attend the labs, watch demos. It's your responsibility to learn. I'm going to give you lots of tools, PowerPoints, handouts. We'll have in-class exercises, but really you just need to practice. Repeat the exercises. Do it once, but then do it again. Make sure you really understand what you're doing. You can experiment. You can create your own spreadsheets to solve problems that you have in life. You can track a budget, a calendar, whatever. Now, use the resources. Work with your friends, and if you do that, it'll be a great experience, and you'll learn a lot. And oh yes, there will be an Excel final exam in the class. And if you prepare and do all the labs, I guarantee you it will be easy. But for those who don't do the labs, and a lot of times people stop halfway through, I don't know why, it's impossible, right? But if you go and do the labs each week, master the skills each week, by the end of the semester when we take the final, it'll be a piece of cake and you'll walk away thinking, wow, I've learned a ton this semester. So go with the program, do the labs, stay caught up, and it'll be great. In each lab, we add or we introduce new functionality. Excel has thousands of functions and things you can do. Nobody's going to master them all. So I've tried to identify the most basic and most important and most representative ones to teach you, ones that I've used throughout my career. So in the first lab, we're just doing some very basic things like, creating a file, naming a worksheet, understanding about rows and columns, using a few formulas. So you're learning some of the basics. In the next lab, we'll review some of these and add some new ones. We kind of build on what we've done. But again, these are just basic things you'll learn. And no one's going to memorize them all. But once you've experimented and done them, it'll be easy for you to use them and do them again. The next two slides have the summary instructions for Excel Lab 1. If you have experience with Excel, and this is a review for you, this should be sufficient instructions for you to complete the lab. But most of you who haven't used it before or haven't done a lot with Excel will need to skip the next two slides. But I've just put them in here so if you want to, you can do the exercise off of these. And again, there's sufficient information. But for the majority of the class, I would just skip through the next two slides and get to the detailed instructions and demos that I put into play. As I mentioned on the previous slide, if you're experienced, you'll be using these instructions. If not, just skip to the next slide. I know we've taken a lot of slides to get here, but the remaining slides are detailed slides. They contain step-by-step instructions to guide you through the assignment. If you're feeling stuck, first try to get it through the slides, but if you get stuck, there's other things you can do. You can watch YouTube videos. Honestly, I would go straight to AI and ask AI how to do it and show you how to do it, especially if you're on a Mac, because it may be the functionality is a little bit different. You can always post questions on the discussion board, ask questions in class, come see me in my office, whatever it takes. But the worst thing to do is just stop when you get stuck. Also, if you're working in a group, I guarantee it's going to be so much easier. You'll get stuck, but there'll be someone else in your group who's figured it out. So with all these tools together, it should be easy for you to get through the assignment. The format for this deck is that first I explain to you what you're doing and how to do it, and then I have screen prints to show you how to do it. So the first step is file setup. Before you're starting, you're going to download the starter file from Canvas. It has information on there you need to use. You don't want to start with a blank Excel file. You're going to save the file with a name, following a naming convention, and you need to save that ideally to OneDrive so you have the automatic backup in place. It's going to help you keep things organized. Ideally, you should put it into a folder on your OneDrive. And also you should realize the file that you are downloading is a CSV file. So you're going to save it as an Excel file. This is pretty common where you get a file that's not an Excel file and you'll change it into an Excel file. That's the first step. I'll explain it again with the pictures in the next slide. So when you take the starter file and open it up, you're going to click on it. This is what you should see in Excel. Now again, if you're using a Mac, your menus are going to be a little bit different, but this is what it will look like on your PC. Notice that there's data inside of your spreadsheet, and everything is organized in rows and columns. So if you look up here, you have column A, B, C, D, E, F, and rows 1, 2, 3, etc. They go, there's many, many thousand columns and many, many thousand rows. But in this case, we have a product. We have, it says Q1 sales, Q2 sales, Q3, etc. You have some information. You have sales for laptops, tablet, monitors, keyboards, and mouse. So this is some incomplete sales data. You're going to change this data into information, but this is what you should see. And again, notice that there's a value in each one of the Excel cells. Excel works with cells, and so when you input information into a cell, you'll see it here. You'll also see it up in this area right here. You can't see it in this screen print, but you'll be able to see it in the cell, and when it's highlighted, you'll see the information up here in this cell. As I mentioned before, when you download the file from Canvas and open it up, you're now going to want to save it as an Excel workbook. It's a CSV file right now. It's not an Excel file. It has to be an Excel file. So you're going to go to the File tab in the upper left-hand corner. You'll click Save As, and then you want to save it onto your OneDrive, ideally. If you don't, do it at your own risk, but if you want to be able to have the automatic backup and you want to be able to load it from OneDrive when you're done, save it onto your drive, onto your OneDrive. Make sure that it's saved as Type Excel Workbook. I'll show you that in the next detailed slide. And for the file name, you're going to change it from the name that it is now to your name. Not actually your name, but if your name is Jane Doe, you can put Jane Doe _ sales report .xlsx. The .xlsx tells you that it's an Excel file. Okay. And then click Save, and your file should now be saved in Excel. Okay, once your file is open, I'm going to show you now how to save your file to your OneDrive. So go up into your menu and find File. It might be a little bit different on the Mac. Click on File. It's going to bring you to another screen. You'll see this information here, but you want to click on Save As. Right now, your file is a .csv file. It has to be an Excel file, this XLSX. You're going to come here then and click on OneDrive and find a folder on your OneDrive where you want to save it, right? So make sure you're saving it on OneDrive, and then you're going to need to give it a new name. If Jane Doe _ sales report, and then make sure it's an XLSX file type. Right now it's CSV. You see this little area here, you click on that and it'll give you the ability to put an XLSX in there, and then you're going to save the file. Here's a better view here. You can see I put in Professor Halterman _ sales report. I clicked on here, and these are all the different file types that I can save it as in Excel. It's old versions of Excel, different file formats. So in the future, you know that in Excel, you can also create non-Excel files. But when you're working in Excel, you want to save it as an Excel workbook, a .xlsx. Don't save it as another type or you'll have problems. When you click on, then you'll click on this before you save. As I mentioned before, you want to make sure you save it onto your OneDrive, like I did right here. And you'll know you've done it correctly because you'll see the file saved onto your computer. In this case, I saved my file on my local drive, but you can save it out to your OneDrive. In addition to rows and columns, Excel uses worksheets. There's multiple worksheets in an Excel file. Each one has a tab to identify it, and each one has a name. The default names are Sheet 1, Sheet 2. It's much easier to have a name that means something. So you're going to rename these worksheets. And in this case, you're going to take Sheet 1 and rename it as 2024 Sales. And then just to make it a little bit nicer, you're going to change the color to a green shade. And I'll show you how on the next screen. So go down and look at the bottom of your spreadsheet. So make sure you're back into your worksheet. You'll see some name. It should say Excel Beginner Exercise Unformatted, something along those lines. You're going to be changing that to the new name. You're going to move your cursor down to this little tab right here. You're going to right-click on that, and this menu is going to appear. You'll then select Rename, and it's going to allow you to give this Excel sheet a new name. You'll then type in the name 2024 Sales, and that'll be the new name. It'll replace the old name that was in place. Then you'll right-click again to make sure you have your menu path up, and where it says Tab Color, you'll click on Tab Color, and all these colors will appear. And you can make the tab whatever color you want, but in this case, we want it to be green. Honestly, it doesn't matter which shade you pick, as long as it's in the ballpark. But click on that, and then the tab, as you can see, becomes green. It has a name, it has a color, which makes it look a little bit nicer than it did before. In this next step, I'm going to show you how to add titles. Titles make reports look professional, and you want to have a nice title above the data. Right now, there's no place to put the title, so you're going to have to insert a new row, a blank row, type in the title, and then format it so it's going to stand out. So the first step is going to be to learn how to insert a row. It's something we can do anywhere in Excel. We can insert a row any place. It's pretty easy, but it's a very basic skill to learn how to insert a row. The way you do it is you right-click on the row where you want to insert it. In this case, row 1. You right-click, and there'll be several options. You'll choose Insert, hit Enter, and then there'll be a new row at the top of your spreadsheet. I'm now going to talk you through how to do insert a row using these pictures. So you'll come up here to row 1, and you're going to right-click right here. It's going to highlight the row when you do that, and you'll be able to insert the row. We'll go to the next slide. Once you right-click, this menu is going to come up, and there's a lot of things you could do. You could copy the row, you could delete the row, you could change the height of the row, you can hide it, unhide it. So you can see there's a lot of features you can do with the row. For this exercise, we just want to insert a new row. That's all we're going to do, so we click on Insert. If I do that correctly, where before there was, our data was at the very top, a blank row has now appeared above the data, and now we can put our title into row number 1 as the data has effectively moved down a row. The next step, we want to add our title. So we go up to the place we want to have the title. We're going to click on cell A1, and we're going to type in there fourth quarter sales report -2024, the title that you're told to do in the exercise. Here's a picture and an illustration of what I've just told you to do. You're going to come up to cell A1. Remember, it's identified by column A and row 1. So you're inputting the information here. Notice how it also appears up here. So whatever cell you're working on, that information will appear here, and you can either type and edit it in either place. But you'll type in the words fourth quarter sales report, and then hit Enter. As I'm going to show you in a second, when you have the screen, where we type the title, it's actually straddling across multiple cells. We really want the title to be in just one cell. So we're going to highlight cells A1 through G1, and we're going to do what's called merge. That will allow the title to be sitting into one cell versus being in 4 or 5 different cells. So here's how we do it. Per the instructions, I click on A1, and then I hold it down and highlight just cell G1. Don't highlight the whole row. Don't highlight just A1, but you have to make sure. You'll see a little bit of gray there. It'll be white in the first cell, but all the others will be gray. Those are the cells you want to merge together. Right now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cells. When you're done, these 7 cells will become one cell. That's what we want to achieve. Once that's highlighted, I want to make sure that I'm in the Home menu option. So make sure you're in Home. And you'll come down here to this area, and there'll be a little arrow. You'll click on that arrow, and another box will open up, which allows you to do formatting to those cells. See where it says Formatted Cells? you're going to come down here. There's a lot of things you can do, but for now, you're just going to merge those cells. So you're going to check the box here for merge cells and click OK. And if you do that, then these 7 cells are going to become 1 cell. And that's exactly what you have here. Cells A1 through G1 are now 1 cell, not multiple cells. Our title still doesn't look very nice though, so we're going to do some formatting. While we're there in this cell, we're going to bold it. So I'm going to show you how to bold it. You're going to highlight it and click on bold in the font group, and you're going to make it a little bit bigger. You're going to change the font size to 16. You're also going to center that across the selection. Right now it's what we call left justified, but we want to see these words centered in the A row. So this is how you're going to do that. With this row highlighted, you're going to come back to Home and the arrow. You're going to click on that, and now you're going to click on the following cells. You're going to click on horizontal. You want it centered, and where it says Format Cells. And also, you've already done this already, but you make sure that the merge cells also click. So now it's going to be centered across the selection. Additionally, you want it bolded. So with this cell highlighted, you must click on it and make sure you're in the home menu area. Find the B, click on B, and it'll become highlighted. Notice there's some other formatting here. You can italicize, you can underline. So if you click on it once, it'll be bolded. Click on it again, it's unbolded. You can go back and forth as you'd like, but the way to bold it is to highlight it and click on B, and it'll bold the text. Okay. In addition to bolding this text, you're also going to change the font. So if you look up in this area, you can see you have the ability to bold, italics, underline, and also change the font. In this case, you're asked to change it to a 16-point font. If you click over here, you can change it to all kinds of different font types too, but in this case, just change it to 16. Whatever you have highlighted in the spreadsheet will change. So in this case, we've only highlighted this one cell, but if you highlighted the other cells, they would also change. So be careful with that. But like I said, this allows you to do different formatting for different kinds of cells. And typically with Excel, with a title, we make it a bigger font, we center it, and it's more prominent than the data inside of the spreadsheet. The next thing we're going to do is adjust the column widths. Right now our spreadsheet's a little bit crowded, so we can change the width of the column to give us a little bit more room, to make sure there's enough room for things to be in place. So we're going to adjust the column widths of columns A through G. Now notice that some of those columns are blank right now, but we're going to add date into those later. So we're going to make them to be a width of 13, and I'll show you how to do that in the next slide. So in order to change column widths, what we have to, we can either change one at a time, but in this case, we want to change all of these to be the same. So what I do is I come up here and I click and I highlight all of these columns here. So it's a right click and I just move it across until the end, until the whole thing is highlighted. And so that means that whatever I do with this is now going to apply to all of those columns. And I could do it to more, I could do it to less. Like I said before, notice that I'm highlighting 3 blank columns in this because we're going to be adding some information to those columns too. So with those columns highlighted, I can now right click on this area and this is going to occur and it gives me a bunch of things I can do. I can copy these columns, I can cut them, which means remove them, so I can paste them somewhere else. I can insert them, but what I really want to do is just change the column width. So I just click on column width, and then we'll go to the next step. When I click on column width, another box is going to appear, and it's going to let me, it'll say column width, and I want to put the number in there. In this case, I want it to be 13 wide. I'm telling you that for now. I type in a 13, I click on OK, and then when I hit enter, the columns are now going to all be 13 units wide. And just as I said before, the columns are all now 13 units wide. You have a lot more room for things, to display. It looks a lot cleaner than it did before. Now we're going to format the header row. Just so you know, the top row is typically called the title row. The header row explains what is in each column. It's also important because it's not the data, and so we want to make it look good. So it's actually the second row this time in our spreadsheet, and we're going to format it. So I'm going to highlight A2 through G2. I'm going to go up to my home menu, and I'm going to bold, and I'm going to center all of the titles in my header row. I'll show you how to do that in the next screen. Okay, so as you can see, I've highlighted this row. I do that by right-clicking, moving my cursor across and clicking, and so all the cells A2 through G2 are now highlighted. Again, notice I'm doing this for F and G also, because I'm going to add some data in there, and I want them, when they're put in there, to be formatted the same as product, Q1 sales, Q2 sales, etc. So make sure you select that whole area. Now with that area selected, I can do my formatting. I need to make sure that I'm in my home area, because remember, each one of these that I click on gives me different menu options, and it'll change the screen. So when I click on home, all of these options appear. And I'm going to go over to my formatting area, and these are highlighted, and I'm in home. So I click on B for bold, so it's bolded. And then if you notice here, I want to be able to center it across the selection. If I click on this right here, it's going to left justify it. Right here, it's going to right justify it. And here it's going to center it. So I want to have these titles centered in the column. As a side note, if the column or if the cell is big, I can have the data either at the top, in the middle, or the bottom. So if you think about it, if I had a big cell, Q1 cells could be at the top of the cell or the bottom of the cell or the middle. I'm not going to worry about that right now. It's showing it at the bottom, but because the cell is so narrow, it doesn't really matter. But I do want to click on this so that it will center the data. So when I'm done, I should see it bolded and centered and looking a lot better. And there you can see the results, our bolded, centered titles. I'm now going to add some columns to my spreadsheet. But the first thing I need to do is add some new column headings. So you're going to learn how to type in text in Excel. You'll do this over and over again. The cell started out having text in it, but you're going to go to 2 cells and type in text. You're going to type in the title annual total, and then you're going to type in the title average sales. One in F2 and one G2. I'll show you that in the next screen. All right, so as mentioned, we're going to type in annual total into cell F2. So I click on cell F2, which will be empty, and then I type in annual total. Now notice it appears here, but it also appears up here. Whatever I am highlighting and working on is going to appear up in this working area and down here, and I can edit it either place. But also notice that since I had bolded and centered it, when I enter it in, the text is also bolded and centered, so I don't have to reformat it. If I typed it somewhere else, it wouldn't be that way, but we just formatted it so annual total is bolded and centered. Now you're going to do your first Excel formula if you've never used Excel before. Excel has thousands and thousands, well, I should say thousands. It has a lot of formulas. It does sums, averages, statistical, scientific, you name it. I don't even know all that it does, right? There's so many. There's a few very basic ones that most people use. Sum is definitely the most common. What it allows you to do is sum a range of cells and give you a total. And so that's all we're going to do. We're going to take the sum of a range of cells and have Excel calculate it for you. Now, the nice thing about a formula is if the numbers change, so does the answer. So one of the things we never do in Excel, I don't have it illustrated here, is I never just put in the numbers into the cell and say add them up. I put in the cell references, and that way whatever numbers are in that cell will be added. So I can update those numbers, and when I update the numbers, the sum will change. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll explain it to you and how to do it in the next slide. So in this part of the spreadsheet, we want to add up the totals of Q1 sales for laptop sales for Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So I'm going to come into my cell here. I'm going to type in equals sum, open parenthesis. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. You could type in B3 colon E3. But what's even easier is once you type in equals sum, open parenthesis, click on cell B3, and the B3 will appear right here. Highlight this whole range, and you'll see you'll have the B3 and the E3 appear here. Type in a closed parenthesis, hit return, and you'll have the formula done. Okay, so again, type in equals sum, open paren, then go over here and click on B3, highlight the range you want to add up, the formula will update, and then just put a close parenthesis on the other end, hit enter, and you'll have your formula done. If you did it correctly, you'll see what's here on the screen. Now notice up at the top, it displays what the formula is. In the cell, it displays the result. So that's the difference between these two places. So when I click on here, I see what should be displayed. When I click on here, I see what the formula is. And if you got 5450, you did it correct. If you got something else or an error, try again. One of the nice things about Excel is it has lots of shortcuts for you. And in some spreadsheets, you could be creating a lot of formulas, but they're basically the same formula over and over again. So Excel is giving some really nice features to help you be able to copy them. One of them is called fill handle, which I'm going to show you how to do in the next slide. But basically, you're going to take the cell you did in F3 and copy it down to to the other cells that are there also. So in this case, to copy it down, I click on cell F3. If I do it correctly, I'm going to see a little box right here, and that's what I really want to click on. I'm going to click on it and not let up, and then I'm going to drag it down to the bottom. I'll show you this in the next screen. So I take my cursor, I go to that little square, right or left click, and drag it all the way down to where I want it to copy, and voila, the formula copies all the way down. Now the nice thing is that the new formula, is not going to be the same as the first one. It's going to be totaling the second row, and this formula will total the third row, this formula will total the fourth row, etc. We'll talk more about the good and the bad of that, but it does allow you to copy it and have it be a relative copy of where it was. Instead of just having 5450 appear all the way down, each copy copies the row that it belongs to. Okay, so we sum the column, or we sum the rows. Now we're going to average the rows. So I'm going to go back in and add a title, and then create the average in the G column. So once again, I come over to cell G2 in this case and type in average sales. Notice how it's bolded and centered. And over here, I can see average sales up here being displayed. So I have it displayed in 2 different places. And I hit enter, and I have the title in. And now I'm going to do almost exactly what I did before, except instead of summing it, I'm going to average these items. So I go over to cell G3, I type in equals average, open parenthesis, and then I click on B3, and once again, the B3 will appear. I highlight all the way across, and you'll see B3, E3, then I put in my close parenthesis and hit enter, and I'll have the formula in place. If you do it right, you'll see the 1362.5, and that's the average of these 4, right? And if you didn't, try again. Again, notice the formula is up here, and the results of the formula display in cell G3. Once again, I'm going to use the fill handle to copy the average formula all the way down to page. I'll show that to you in the next slide. I'm just showing you a little bit more this time. Like before, I'm going to come over here and find the little square in the corner. I'll drag it all the way down. Once I do it, you're going to also see this little box here. If you click on the box, it gives you the ability to copy the cells, or just to do the formatting only, or do it without the formatting. So you have multiple things that it will do. But in this case, all we want to do is copy the cells all the way down. We have some more formatting to do. There's actually quite a bit in this spreadsheet. We're going to do some number and cell formatting. We want to make sure that the body of the spreadsheet looks nice. So we're going to format those in a proper way with currency and no decimals. I'll show you how to do that in the next slide, and also show you how to have or not have decimals. Okay, I want the body of my spreadsheet to look nice. So I'm going to come over here and highlight this whole area, as you can see. So I'll click, hold it down until this is all highlighted. Then I make sure I'm in Home. And if you come over to this area of the spreadsheet, you can see that I have the ability to format. I'm going to select, I want to use the accounting format with $signs. When I click on that, this is what I get. Now notice that I have decimal points. I'll just tell you, in real life, most of the time people don't care about the decimal points. It just makes it look ugly, right? It's a rounding error, and most businesses don't care about it. There may be some that do. In fact, a lot of times you round in thousands or even millions of dollars, but that's for another day. So first thing though is we're going to do this, and it's by default showing us 2 decimal points. I'll show you how to get rid of the decimals in the next slide. But you've clicked on accounting and $sign. By the way, if you click on this arrow, there's all kinds of other formats, date formats and things, which we'll use in future labs. Okay, to get rid of the zeros, what I do is, you can see up here, with it still highlighted, I can click on this little thing here. You can see it has zeros going up and zeros going down. So if I click on zeros going up, more zeros would appear. I don't want to do that, or more decimals would appear. I want to get rid of them. So I click once. When I do that, I have 1 decimal. I click it again, and the decimals are gone. It's been rounded. Okay. And that's what I want you to do, is round it, get rid of those decimals. Like I said, most of the time it just doesn't look very nice. And so you're gonna round things and get rid of the decimals by clicking on these 2 little buttons here. Again, you can increase it or you can decrease it. In this case, we're decreasing it. The next thing we want to do is add some borders to our spreadsheet. With cells, it looks like there's borders, but if you print it off and you haven't put in borders, there's no lines between the cells. So when we print this off, we want to make sure there's lines between the cells. And so I'm going to show you how to put borders in the next slide. So I want to put borders around my table, but not around my title. So I'm going to click on cell A2. And from cell A2, I'm going to highlight the whole area that I want to put the borders on. So I click on cell A2, I highlight it, and then I go up to my formatting. And you'll notice up here there's like a little square. This allows me to put borders. I can do all borders. I can do thick outside borders. I can do up and down. I can do all kinds of things with borders, but in this case, I'm going to put borders around everything. I click on all borders, and now there's lines around them. And this is how it should look. Now you put borders around there, I'm actually going to do something that's going to make the borders obsolete. I wanted to make sure you understood how to do borders, but now we're going to take this and convert it into a table. If we make this data a table, it's going to create some nice formatting for us, nice colors. It actually overwrites some of the other formatting we had, but now that we have it all completed, I'm going to show you how Excel will have you convert things into a table. You need to select cells A2 and G7. Don't select the title. The title's not part of the table. And you also need to make sure you check the box, my table has headers, because the headers get treated differently. You're going to click OK, and then you'll pick a table style. And with the table selected, you go to Table Design tab, choose a style you like from the table styles, and you'll see how nicely your table will look once it's been converted. I'll show you on the next slide. Okay, so to turn our data or format as a table, I'm going to first start by highlighting cell A2 all the way down through G7. So you'll click and highlight it. Then I'm going to go up to Menu Option, Insert, and you're going to see this little table icon on there, which you're going to click on. This is then going to say, do you want to, it's going to say create a table. Since I've already selected it, the numbers will appear there. That's the range. I could change it, but I don't. This is the range I want. And the question is, does the table have headers or not? Almost always, I can't think of any situation almost where your table wouldn't have headers. In this case, product, Q1 sales, the description of what's in the column, that's your headers. So you want those treated differently than your data items. So you do a click on those, and my table has headers and an OK. And in the next screen, you'll see what happens. Once you've clicked on that, it'll appear as a table, but you'll need to select a table design. So if you click on table design, right, and come over here and choose the style you want, you can move from one to the other, see how they look. In this case, I've chosen blue. You could choose something else, but there's all kinds of different table designs. But in this case, we're going to click on table, making sure your table's highlighted. Click on table design, and it'll put in here nice additional formatting that you didn't have before. It's going to make sure that you have filters, so everything will look nice and dandy, and you'll have a nice looking table. Okay. With our table done, we're now ready to create a chart, or sometimes called a graph. And in this case, we're going to do a pie chart. Super easy, very simple. We're actually going to have a whole Excel lab on these in the future where I show you different kinds of charts you can do. But for today, we're just going to create a simple 3D pie chart. And so I'll show you that in the next slide. To create a 3D pie chart, the first thing you need to do is highlight your table. So you're going to go cell A2 through G7 must be highlighted. And then click on Insert, which you can see up here. And when you hit Insert, you should see all kinds of charts that appear. So you'll come over here. You can click on Recommended Chart, or in this case, just click on the pies and come down to 3D pie. Click on that, and your pie chart should appear on your sheet. Excel isn't picky about where the pie chart appears. We don't want it overlapping your table. So I'm going to show you how you can move the chart so it looks a lot nicer than being either overlapped or in the wrong place. We'll do that on the next slide. Okay, so in order to center this, wherever your pie chart comes out, you're going to click on it and just drag it over here into the middle of wherever it was, center it in a nice place, and you're done. We want to make a minor modification to the chart. In future exercises, we'll show you how to do a lot more. But in this case, we just want to make sure the chart has a title. So we're going to call it annual sales by product, and I'll show you how to do that in the next slide. So I have my pie chart highlighted. You'll notice there's already a title up there. It probably says Q1 sales. It's taking the name from the first column. We don't want it called Q1 sales. We want it called annual sales by product. So I'm just going to highlight that box, and I'm going to type in over Q1 sales, annual sales by product. I'm going to hit enter, and now my pie chart has a new title. Some people think printing is dead, but lots of times you need to print something to hand out to people. And in an Excel spreadsheet, you have data all over the place. And so you need to be able to tell Excel when you're printing, are you going to print? I'm just going to teach you a very, very basic way. You're going to have to go ahead and prepare the area of the Excel spreadsheet that you want to print. In this case, we have a table and a graph or chart, and we only want to print the table. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And since we're not going to print, we're going to use a PDF. So in the next slide, I'll show you how we do that. When you set a print area in Excel, all you do is highlight the cells you want printed, and then you choose page layout and set print area from the drop-down menu, and that's what will be printed. There's a lot more things you can do, but that's the basic we're going to show you how to do in this exercise, is how to print a certain area. And in this case, we're going to print cells A1 to G7, and I'll show you how to do that in the next slide. Once again, you're going to start by highlighting the area that you want to print. This is the area A1 through G7, not the graph, and you're going to click on Page Layout. From there, you'll notice that it says there's options here, and you're going to select Print Area. You're going to click on Set Print Area. If this is already highlighted, then Excel knows when it prints, it's going to print this print area. You need to make sure you just cover A1 through G7. Do not include the graph, the pie chart. You're only going to print out the table. When you print, there's two ways of referring to printing. There's landscape and portrait. We're going to change it to landscape so that we have a wider page. I'll show you how to do that. With that, we'll have more room for our table to appear. So we're going to change the orientation to landscape. As I mentioned before, you're still in page layout. You had set the print area. Now move over to orientation. If you click portrait, notice it's going to be printed like a regular page. We want it to print wider, so we click on landscape, and that's going to give us more room and can actually make our table can be bigger because it's being printed on landscape. Now, if you want to do it from your printer, you could hook it up and hit File Print, and the paper would print out, and the table would appear, and the chart graph would not. But since I need evidence of this, instead of doing that, and this is a common thing we do, you do this all the time with resumes and other things, you're going to have you save it as a PDF file. So notice this is going to be the second file you're going to need to submit. It's a PDF file. It's a printout of the table you just created. You're going to export it to PDF. So you're going to go to File, Tab, and choose Export. And you can either do the print, or in this case, we're just going to save it. You're going to say click, you're going to say create PDF XPS document. You're going to hit create, save it with your name in the sales report.pdf, replacing your name with your name, whatever it is, and you're going to save the file. It's going to be a PDF. You can do the same thing with file print, or you can do an export to PDF, one or the other. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. Make sure that your area is highlighted. You'll come up to the menu and click on File. Once you do that, you'll get to this screen here, and you're going to click on Save a Copy. Actually, make sure you click on OneDrive to make sure you're in your OneDrive folder if you're not there already. Notice I'm in my OneDrive Excel Lab folder, but if you're not, click on OneDrive to get to your folder. Click on Save a Copy. I think it's actually going to default to your name already in Sales Report, but instead of saving it as an Excel workbook, you're going to save it as a PDF. So come down here and hit Save PDF, and it should save it out onto your OneDrive. Again, just showing you a little bit more detail. Once you've selected the PDF will occur here. You'll click on Save. You'll now have two files that you need to submit. The first one is the Excel file. The second one is the PDF file. Please submit two. Over and over again, people only submit one. You need to submit your Excel file and your PDF file. This is how your spreadsheet should look now with the table and the chart down below. It may not look like this when you load it into Canvas, but when you're looking at it in Excel, if your file looks like this, you're pretty good. Please make sure that you have formulas in these cells here under annual total and average sales. Check the formatting. But if you've done all this, down here is the 2024 sales and it's in green. You've created your first spreadsheet. Well done. If you look at your PDF file, it should look like this. There should be no graph here because remember you set the print range just to cover the table. If the chart is there, you did it wrong, you highlighted too much. So your PDF should look like this. These are the two files you need to submit. The PDF and the Excel file are the two you need to submit to get full credit for this assignment. Don't submit your starter file, submit your completed file, and don't just create a picture of your Excel file. Some people do that. You need to submit the actual Excel file, and it should be on your OneDrive. You should be able to load it up from your OneDrive. Here's the information again. Submit the two files for Excel Lab 1, your name plus sales report, and the PDF file. Please don't make the mistake of submitting the starter file. Do this, and you're going to ace the first Excel Lab. Congratulations on getting it done. I hope this was helpful, and we'll look forward to doing Excel Lab 2 next time.